restoring Illinois to greatness. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute and hosted by AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with John Tillman, President and CEO of the Illinois Policy Institute. And John, old habits die hard in state government. If it's not pension spiking, then it's manipulating unused vacation, sick, and personal days for big payouts for well-compensated Illinois state employees.
All written legally to make this legal corruption. This is all part of the rules of the game they construct for themselves to enrich themselves with money they take out of a taxpayer's wallet, and instead of spending on helping to educate children, they spend it on their personal self-aggrandizement.
Well, and it's particularly poignant in this instance because we're talking about the outgoing state school superintendent. So at a time where you have a lot of cash-strapped school districts, it's a bit unnerving to see the kind of compensation packages that higher-ups in the education bureaucracy are getting. And for more on this, we're now joined by Diane Ratto, who's a Chicago Tribune reporter who wrote extensively on the topic that we're discussing. Diane, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi, how are you?
And Diane, I always say you do some of the best work on education writing in the city.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So walk us through the compensation package of the outgoing state school superintendent.
Well, it started out with the State Board of Education back in April approving no more than $89,000 for a severance payment to Christopher Cook. So following that, there have been questions by lawmakers about why did he get a severance? His contract had actually expired on February 1st, and he stayed on a couple months, but he didn't renew, to anyone's knowledge, a new contract. There was some language about severance in the contract, but it was if he was terminated during the contract period. He wasn't. So there's never been any answers to those questions, whether they've been posed to lawmakers or the Tribune. I've questioned several times, why did Chris get a severance payment? But in any case, that wasn't even the end of it, because we kept asking, well, what did he get? No more than $89,000. Well, was it 60? Was it 70? So I finally went to the comptroller's office just to say, what did this man get paid? Turns out he also got paid $118,000 in unused vacation days of about 140. And I think most private sector and even some other government workers, I can't imagine, have accumulated 120 vacation days. So that package added up to more than $200,000. And at the time, and even so now, there are many districts still struggling with deficits. So, and we've got prorated per pupil aid still, lots of concerns about school finances. So $206,000 is I think most people would consider that a large sum.
Diane, did you have a chance to FOIA or at least look at the payment voucher that would have gone into the comptroller's office that authorized the payment? Because the comptroller, by law, must make a payment when a legal voucher comes in authorizing payment. She doesn't have control over that. But I'd like to know who signed the voucher. Let's run this back to who authorized it, because I'm sure it's going to suddenly get murky.
The comptroller's office has always been very, very helpful. When I initially got figures from the comptroller's office, they said they only get an amount that is supposed to be paid. They don't have it labeled. Oh, this person got a severance, or this is what it was explained to me. So we had to go. There was not an explanation except that a salary amount or some amount was paid to this person. So we were told, or I was told by the comptroller's office, that I had to go back to the State Board of Education and get that information. So and I did FOIA documents. They didn't give me any documents. They sent back basically a spreadsheet which had some brief descriptions like severance, 20 days vacation.
It seems to me that this is another case where this is an abuse or a perk, if you will, that is easily reformed. Like the private sector, you have so many vacation days, but you use them or lose them, so you can't accumulate them and pile up for this big payout.
Well, for Chris Cook, he had annually 35 vacation days. That's
too many to start
for the private sector, that's a lot.
Yeah, 5 weeks, I'd say so.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's 7 weeks.
That's 7 weeks.
7 weeks. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Sure.
So he had 35, and he could roll over 20 every year. And that's just again, I think even in the private sector, I think there's some rollover you're allowed to. I was trying to think about my career over the years. I've worked several different newspapers. I think you could roll over one or two, but 140.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
who can take 7 weeks of vacation for God's sakes?
I mean, maybe they're going on a sabbatical. Maybe there's a sabbatical. I don't know.
Well, can I ask a predicate question?
Yeah.
With all these, we talk about superintendents, school superintendents' salaries and pensions all the time at the local level. Why do we need a state layer on top of all the layers we have at the local level?
I do. People. A lot of times, people will email me and say, "What do they do at the state board? Why do we need a state superintendent?"
Yes.
And I do say, people don't realize there is a lot. I mean, when you think about state policy, state testing, special ed, there are a lot of programs that are overseen by the state. I mean, the feds might give you some money, but it is done by the state. So that is their job. I mean, there is a lot. Teacher licensing. I mean, there are just a lot of things going on that the state handles, and I don't think most people realize.
Sure, which is why he shouldn't get 7 weeks of vacation. He doesn't have time. He's got all that work to do.
Well, the other thing is some people have raised the issue of should we have an elected superintendent like some other states do that is accountable to taxpayers
like Indiana has.
I think Indiana. I mean, when I was in Florida, it went back and forth, but Florida has long had an elected. So, and maybe there'd be some more accountability if it was an elected. I don't know. It goes back and forth. There's again, some states have elected, some have appointed, but again, I've been getting emails on that as well. Should we really have someone that we can truly, as taxpayers and consumers, hold accountable?
Diane Ratto, Chicago Tribune reporter. Thanks so much for joining us.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.